Hey everyone, welcome back to Lina Talks. I'm Lina, and this channel is all about real talk and real stories. So without wasting any time, let's get straight into today's topic.
It was an ordinary afternoon in Manila. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the busy streets as people hurried home from work. Among the crowd was a familiar figure, dressed simply in a plain shirt and jeans. To most, he blended in. But to those who looked closely, there was no mistaking him. The boxing legend himself, Manny Pacquiao. He walked calmly, hands in his pockets, greeting a few fans who recognized him. To Manny, this was nothing unusual. Despite his fame and fortune, he preferred living like a regular man, walking among the people he had always represented. But that day, something happened that caught everyone's attention. From the corner of the street, a frail man emerged. His clothes were torn, his hair unkempt, and his face carried the exhaustion of someone who had lived too many nights on the pavement. His steps were hesitant, his eyes downcast, as if he wasn't sure he should approach. Finally gathering what little courage he had left, the man spoke softly. "Sir, can you give me $1?" The crowd froze. Some nearby commuters chuckled, whispering to each other. "Did he just ask Manny Pacquiao for $1?" Another scoffed. Out of all people? To them, it seemed ridiculous. Here was a homeless man asking a multi-millionaire and a world champion, a senator, for just one single dollar. Surely Manny would ignore him, brush him off, or laugh it away. After all, celebrities were known to be busy, distant, or sometimes even cold. But Manny did not laugh. He did not turn away. He stopped in his tracks and looked at the man directly, his expression unreadable. The homeless man shifted nervously, ready for rejection, already regretting that he had asked, and then Manny spoke. "Why $1?" The question caught everyone off guard. Bystanders leaned in closer. Their curiosity piqued. Why didn't Manny just give him the coin and walk away? Why ask such a strange question? The homeless man's lips trembled as he tried to explain, his voice barely above a whisper. And in that moment, the street grew quiet. Everyone wanted to hear what would happen next because no one expected what Manny was about to do. What Manny did in response shocked everyone standing there. The street had gone quiet. Manny's question, why $1, lingered in the air, echoing louder than the chaos of honking cars and chatter around them. The homeless man swallowed hard, his eyes darting nervously between Manny and the curious crowd. For a moment, it looked as if he might turn and run, ashamed of having asked at all, but something in Manny's steady gaze, patient, not mocking, gave him courage to speak. I don't need much," the man said quietly. $1 is enough to buy a piece of bread, maybe some water. That's all I wanted today, just enough so I don't go to sleep hungry again." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of countless nights of suffering. The people nearby shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, unwilling to meet his eyes. Others shook their heads, whispering harshly. "Why doesn't he just get a job?" one man muttered. "Always asking for handouts." And others scoffed. A group of teenagers laughed openly, nudging each other. "Imagine begging Manny Pacquiao for $1. He probably spends that on coffee." The homeless man lowered his head, the shame almost too heavy to bear. He had heard those words before. To the world, he was invisible, or worse, a burden. But Manny did not move. He continued to stand there, his focus entirely on the man before him. His silence, his stillness began to unsettle the crowd. Finally, Manny asked another question. "How long have you been living on the streets?" The man hesitated, then sighed. 3 years since I lost my job. My wife left and my children. I haven't seen them. Some days I beg, some days I don't even bother. People just walk past like I'm not there. Today I thought maybe someone would listen." His voice cracked at the last word, and he quickly wiped at his eyes, embarrassed. The crowd shifted again. Some looked guilty now, others curious. A woman whispered softly to her friend, "I didn't know. He doesn't even want much, just a little help." But not everyone was moved. A man in a business suit sneered, "Don't be fooled. They all have stories. He just wants money for alcohol or drugs." Manny turned his head toward the man, and for the first time his calm expression hardened slightly. "Do you know him? Do you know his story?" The businessman fell silent, caught off guard. Manny's voice hadn't been loud, but it carried an authority that silenced the street. Turning back to the homeless man, Manny softened again. "You asked for $1, he said thoughtfully. "Just enough to survive the day, but tell me, is survival all you want?" The man blinked, unsure how to answer. His hands trembled as he clutched the strap of his torn bag. I don't know anymore. I just don't want to be hungry." Manny nodded slowly. He understood. Hunger was cruel. It didn't just weaken the body, it crushed the spirit. By now, more people had gathered, their phones raised, recording every second. The story was unfolding live before dozens of strangers, but it felt as if the entire world was holding its breath. And then Manny did something no one expected. He crouched down, lowering himself so that his eyes met the homeless man's. In that single gesture, he erased the distance between a boxing legend and a forgotten soul. "You asked for $1, Manny said softly. "But I want to give you something greater than that. I want to give you respect." The man's eyes widened. For years, he had been treated as less than human. No one had spoken to him this way. No one had looked at him without disgust or pity. His lips trembled, but no words came. The crowd fell silent, stunned by Manny's words. Even the ones who had mocked earlier now looked uneasy, their faces betraying shame, and as the moment stretched, the anticipation grew. Everyone wanted to know what would Manny do next. Would he give the man $1? Would he walk away after delivering his message? Or was something bigger about to happen? The answer was coming, and it would leave everyone around them in complete disbelief. Have you ever seen someone judged unfairly just for asking for help? Comment below where you're watching this from, because what happens next will shock you. The silence that followed Manny's words, "I want to give you respect," was heavy, almost uncomfortable. People exchanged glances, unsure of how to react. Some shifted their feet, their earlier smirks fading, but others weren't ready to let go of their cynicism. From the back of the crowd, a man in a crisp polo shirt chuckled loudly. "Respect? That's not what he needs. He needs a shower and a job." Laughter rippled among a small group near him, and the homeless man's shoulders slumped. His hands trembled as he looked down at the cracked pavement. He had been here before, mocked, dismissed, judged by strangers who knew nothing of his story. For a fleeting moment, he wished he hadn't approached Manny at all. Another voice cut in sharper this time. "Don't waste your money on him, Pacquiao. These people are the same. They'll take whatever you give and be back here tomorrow." The homeless man closed his eyes. The words stabbed deeper than hunger ever could. He felt stripped of dignity, exposed in front of cameras and strangers. His body shook with shame, and quietly, almost in a whisper, he said, Maybe I should just go." But before he could move, Manny placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. The gesture was simple, but it spoke louder than the cruelty around them. Manny's touch told him, "You're not invisible. You matter." The crowd hushed again, curious. Manny turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the faces of those gathered. He wasn't angry, but his eyes carried a quiet authority that demanded respect. "Why is it," Manny asked calmly, "that when a man in a suit asks for millions in loans, he is called a businessman, but when a hungry man asks for $1, he is called lazy?" The words hit like a punch, sharp and undeniable. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few lowered their eyes, ashamed. The ones who had laughed now stood silent. The homeless man looked up, eyes glistening. He had never heard anyone defend him so boldly, especially not someone like Manny Pacquiao. Still, the mockers weren't finished. A young man with his phone raised muttered, "He's just doing this for the cameras. It's all for show." Manny heard it, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he gestured to the phones pointed at him. "If these cameras are recording, then good. Let the world see. Let them see how we treat the poor. Let them see how quick we are to laugh at someone's pain. Maybe then we will realize what needs to change." The crowd stirred again, this time with nods of agreement. What had started as curiosity was turning into admiration. Manny wasn't just defending one man, he was challenging everyone watching live and online to confront their own prejudices. The homeless man, overwhelmed, whispered, "Sir, I don't deserve your kindness." Manny leaned closer, his voice steady but gentle. "Every human being deserves kindness. Don't ever believe otherwise." The man broke down, tears spilling freely down his face. For years, he had been told through words, through actions, through silence that he was worthless. But in that moment, Manny gave him back something priceless, dignity. Still, the crowd buzzed with anticipation. What would Manny actually do? Would he hand over a coin, a bill, or simply leave it at words? One of Manny's companions, shifting uncomfortably, whispered, "Let's go, champ. You don't need this drama." His children, watching from a short distance, looked worried too, unsure why their father was spending so much time with a stranger everyone else dismissed. But Manny stayed rooted. His gaze never wavered. "This man asked me for $1, Manny said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. But what he truly asked for was a reminder that he is seen, that he is heard, that he matters. The murmurs grew louder, a mix of guilt and awe. Some of the same people who had mocked moments earlier now found themselves nodding, ashamed of their own words. The homeless man sniffled, still clutching his torn bag. "I just wanted to eat today," he admitted, his voice breaking. Manny gave a soft smile. "And you will, but not just today." The crowd froze. Phone zoomed in, capturing every second. Something big was about to happen, and everyone knew it. The homeless man looked at Manny in confusion. His eyes darted between the boxing champion's calm face and the money bulge in his pocket. "Sir, what do you mean?" Manny rose slowly to his feet, his presence commanding the entire street. The whispers died instantly. He reached into his pocket, and the crowd leaned in, holding their breath. Everyone expected him to pull out a single bill, maybe a small gesture to end the moment, but deep down, something told them this was going to be far more than anyone imagined because Manny Pacquiao was about to shock them all. If you were standing there watching this unfold, what would you expect Manny to do next? Comment your guess below because the truth will leave you speechless. The air was electric, charged with anticipation. Every eye was fixed on Manny Pacquiao as he reached into his pocket. The homeless man's breath quickened. He braced himself for the familiar ritual. A small coin, maybe a crumpled bill. A gesture tossed his way like a bone to a starving dog. He had lived this moment too many times before, but Manny paused. He didn't pull out money right away. Instead, he crouched down slowly, lowering himself until his eyes were level with the man sitting on the curb. The crowd gasped softly. This was not the stance of a celebrity towering above the poor. This was a champion humbling himself to meet someone the world had forgotten. "Look at me," Manny said gently. The man hesitated, then lifted his eyes. They were bloodshot, filled with years of pain and rejection. His lips trembled, unable to form words. "You asked me for $1, Manny continued, his voice calm but carrying through the crowd. "But I want you to know something. You are worth more than $1. You are worth more than what people see when they look at you." The man blinked rapidly as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. For years he had been invisible. Now someone the whole world recognized was telling him he mattered. The crowd stood still, hushed. Even the ones who had mocked earlier leaned forward, their shame written across their faces. A woman near the front whispered, "He's not just giving him money, he's giving him dignity." Manny glanced at the spectators, then back at the man. "Respect," he said firmly, "should not be earned by wealth or fame. Respect is given because every human life has value. And today I want to show you that you are seen." The homeless man's chin quivered. He whispered hoarsely, Nobody has ever spoken to me like this." Manny gave a small smile. "Then let today be the first time." He reached into his pocket again, and this time he pulled out not a single coin but a folded bundle of bills. The crowd gasped audibly. Some craned their necks trying to see how much it was. Others raised their phones higher, recording every second. The man's eyes widened. His instinct was to push it away. "No, sir, it's too much. I only asked for $1. Manny shook his head gently. "You asked for $1 to eat today, but I want you to live beyond today. Take it, not as charity. Take it as a reminder that your life has meaning." The man's hands shook violently as Manny placed the bundle into them. His chest heaved, and for a moment he couldn't breathe. The crowd erupted in whispers, disbelief spreading like wildfire. Did he just give him all that? That has to be thousands. Unbelievable. But Manny wasn't finished. He looked around at the people watching and raised his voice slightly. How many of us walk past someone like him every day? How many of us think they are less than us simply because they ask for help? The silence was deafening. People avoided eye contact, staring down at the pavement, ashamed. The earlier laughter was gone, replaced with the weight of reflection. True strength, Manny continued, is not measured by how many titles you win or how much money you make. True strength is measured by how you treat those who have nothing. The words sank deep. Even those who had mocked now found themselves nodding slowly, humbled. The homeless man clutched the money tightly against his chest, tears streaming freely down his cheeks. "Thank you. Thank you, sir. You've saved me. I can eat. I can." His voice cracked, overwhelmed by emotion. Manny placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "This money will help you for now. But what I want you to remember is this. Never believe the lie that you are worthless. Stand up. Believe in yourself, and when you can, help someone else." The man sobbed openly now, burying his face in his hands. The crowd watched silently, many wiping their own tears. What began as a simple request for $1 had become a powerful lesson, one that no one present would ever forget. A man in the crowd whispered almost to himself, "We came here to see a champion, but today we saw something greater." The energy shifted completely. Those who had mocked now hung their heads. Strangers who had once looked down on the homeless man now looked at him differently with compassion instead of contempt. And Manny. He didn't puff his chest or bask in applause. He simply stood up, helped the man to his feet, and gave him a final nod of encouragement. The cameras captured it all. The kneeling, the bundle of cash, the tears, the message of respect. Within hours, the video would go viral, sparking debates, admiration, and inspiration around the globe. But in that quiet moment on the street, the lesson was already clear. $1 had turned into something far greater, a spark of humanity that lit up an entire crowd. What happened next would not only humble the bystanders who mocked, it would go on to inspire millions around the world. The homeless man clutched the bundle of bills against his chest like it was a lifeline. His body shook as sobs broke free, echoing in the tense silence of the street. For years, he had been invisible, a shadow people avoided. Now, standing before him was a man he had only ever seen on TV. A legend, a champion, telling him he mattered. The crowd buzzed with disbelief. Some whispered in awe. Others filmed silently, realizing they were witnessing something bigger than just a generous act. But Manny wasn't finished. He turned, scanning the onlookers one by one, his voice calm yet commanding. "You all saw what happened here," he began. "A man asked me for $1, just one, and how many of you laughed? How many of you judged before you even knew his story?" The words landed heavy, faces fell. A few people lowered their phones, ashamed of what they had muttered earlier. The man in the polo shirt, who had joked about showers and jobs, shuffled uncomfortably, unable to meet Manny's gaze. Manny continued, "We live in a world where it's easy to step over the poor, to mock the weak, to assume the worst. But how often do we stop to ask why? How often do we ask about their pain, their journey, their struggle?" The homeless man sniffled, his hands trembling as he wiped at his face. Manny reached out, steadying him. "You don't need to hide your tears. There is no shame in asking for help. The shame belongs to those who see suffering and do nothing." The crowd murmured, nodding slowly. Even those who had doubted earlier now looked moved, their expressions softening. Manny raised the man's hand, the same hand clutching the bundle of bills, and held it high for everyone to see. This man is not a beggar, he is not a burden, he is a reminder that any one of us could be in his place if life turned differently. So tell me, and who among us is truly greater? The words sent chills through the gathering. Phones captured the moment, flashes of light reflecting off Manny's calm face. The homeless man choked out, I don't know what to say. You've given me more than I could ever dream." Manny smiled softly. "Then promise me one thing. When you stand again, when you find your strength, help someone else who feels invisible. Pass this respect forward." The man nodded vigorously, tears streaming again. I promise I will." For the first time, the crowd broke into applause. Not the wild cheers reserved for a boxing ring, but a slow, heartfelt clap that grew louder with every second. Strangers who had mocked were now clapping for the dignity of a man they once dismissed. But Manny lifted his hand, signaling silence. He wasn't done. "You cheer now," he said, "but cheering is easy. The real question is, what will you do when you leave here? Will you walk past the next hungry man and laugh, or will you remember this moment and choose kindness?" The question hung in the air, heavier than any punch Manny had ever thrown. It pierced deeper than fists. It pierced consciences. The businessman who had sneered earlier whispered to no one in particular, "He's right. We all walk past every day." A woman near the front holding her child's hand bent down and whispered, "Never forget this, okay? Always help when you can." The little girl nodded, eyes wide. The homeless man fell to his knees, overwhelmed. He kissed Manny's hand, weeping. "You saved me. Not just with this money, but you saved my soul." Manny knelt again, lifting him gently back to his feet. "No man should bow before another. Stand tall. You have dignity. Don't ever let anyone take that from you again." The cameras flashed. That single image, the champion raising the hand of a forgotten man, would soon circle the globe. But Manny himself didn't linger on fame or credit. He leaned close to the man and said softly, "This is not about me. This is about you. Remember, you are worth more than you believe." The man nodded, still trembling. But now his posture was different. For the first time in years, he stood a little taller. The applause swelled again, but Manny didn't bask in it. Instead, he looked around, challenging the crowd one last time. If you believe respect belongs to everyone, don't just clap, live it, show it. Be the one who chooses compassion. The crowd erupted once more, not just in applause, but in cheers of agreement. People were moved, some even pulled out their wallets, approaching the homeless man. Not out of pity, but out of solidarity. Manny stepped back, allowing the moment to belong to the man. He didn't want the spotlight, he wanted the world to see humanity raw and unfiltered. And as the cameras kept rolling, the story of a $1 request had transformed into a global lesson about dignity, respect, and the true meaning of strength. Do you agree with Manny that true strength is measured by compassion, not wealth or titles? Comment yes if you believe respect should be for everyone. The street was alive with energy. The atmosphere transformed. What had begun as an awkward, almost cruel spectacle had become something profound. Strangers who minutes earlier had mocked now stood shoulder to shoulder, clapping and nodding with respect. The homeless man still held the bundle of bills close to his chest, his fingers trembling. But his eyes had changed. No longer downcast, no longer dulled by years of rejection, they now held light. Hope. Manny placed a steadying hand on his back, guiding him toward a nearby bench. Sit, Manny said softly. You've carried a heavy load. Let's rest for a moment. The man obeyed, still overwhelmed, but he couldn't stop repeating the same words under his breath. Thank you. Thank you. Around them, the crowd buzzed. Phones were still recording. Voices whispered. That was unbelievable. Pacquiao. He's something else. This will go viral for sure. Yet Manny seemed completely unaware or unconcerned with the cameras. His focus remained on the man before him. Kneeling once more, Manny adjusted the man's worn shoes, tying a loose lace as if he were caring for a brother. The crowd gasped quietly. Here was a world champion, a senator, a man of global fame, bowing down to tie the shoes of someone society had discarded. It was then that one bystander, who hadn't recognized him before, suddenly whispered, "Wait, is that Manny Pacquiao?" The whisper spread quickly, rippling through the crowd like wildfire. Heads turned, eyes widened, phones zoomed closer. Yes, that's him. The people's champ helping a homeless man. Oh my God, this is real! The realization struck them all at once. This wasn't just any kind stranger. This was one of the most famous athletes in the world, a man who had every reason to ignore, every excuse to walk away, and yet he chose to stop, to listen, to care. The homeless man heard the murmurs too. His head jerked up, confusion etched across his face. He looked at Manny, his voice trembling. You're him, the boxer, the champion." Manny gave a small smile, almost embarrassed. "Yes, but today I'm just a man the same as you." The man's mouth fell open. Tears spilled again, but this time they weren't only from pain, they were from awe. "Why would someone like you stop for me? I'm nothing." Manny shook his head firmly. "Don't ever say that. You are not nothing. Fame, titles, money, so they do not make a man greater. What makes a man great is his heart. And you, my friend, have a heart that still beats, still fights. That is worth more than all the belts I've ever won." The man sobbed again, covering his face with his hands. The crowd visibly moved, broke into loud cheers. Some clapped, others shouted, "Respect!" Their earlier mockery replaced with admiration not only for Manny, but for the lesson he had delivered. One of Manny's assistants, clearly concerned about the growing crowd, leaned in and whispered, "Sir, maybe we should go. This is getting big." Manny glanced at the cameras and the swelling number of people. He nodded slightly, but before leaving, he turned back to the homeless man. "Listen to me," Manny said softly but firmly. "This moment does not end here. Use what I've given you wisely. Find food. Find shelter. But most importantly, find your worth again. You are stronger than you believe." The man nodded, sobbing, clutching the money with trembling hands. "I will, sir. I promise. I will." Manny clasped his hand one last time, then stood tall. The crowd erupted in applause once more, their cheers echoing down the street. People were chanting his name now, not for a fight in the ring, but for the fight he had shown outside it, the fight for dignity, for compassion, for justice. Yet Manny didn't raise his fists in victory. He simply lifted his hand in a quiet wave, humbly acknowledging the moment before slipping away into the crowd. The homeless man sat there, still stunned, his life forever changed in the span of a few minutes. Strangers who had once avoided him now approached, offering food, money, and even words of encouragement. For the first time in years, he wasn't invisible. He was seen, and as the video spread online, the world, too, would see not just the act of generosity, but the deeper truth that no one is beneath respect. And true champions fight not only in arenas but in the streets where humanity is tested every day. But the story doesn't end here. Within hours, this moment would explode across the internet, and what happened next would shake the world. By the time Manny and his companions had quietly slipped away, the videos were already flooding social media. Dozens of phones had captured the moment from every angle. The homeless man asking for $1, the crowd mocking, Manny kneeling, and finally the life-changing gift wrapped in words of dignity. Within an hour, hashtags were trending. Respect for all, Manny the champion, $1 lesson. Clips circulated across Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Each edit carried captions like, "This is why he's not just a champion in the ring." News outlets quickly picked up the story, headlines flashed, "Manny Pacquiao stops in the street to teach the world about compassion." From $1 to dignity, boxing legend's lesson goes viral. Crowd mocks. Manny Pacquiao responds with humanity. Comment sections exploded. Some admitted their own guilt. "I've ignored people like this before. Now I see them differently. This video broke me." Respect should never depend on status. Pacquiao didn't just give money. He gave this man his life back. Even celebrities shared the clip praising Manny for showing what true greatness looked like. Athletes, actors, politicians, voices from every corner of the world echoed the same sentiment. This was bigger than boxing. Meanwhile, the homeless man's life began to change. People who had once avoided him now offered food, clothes, and shelter. Local organizations reached out, inspired to help him find stability. For the first time in years, he felt the warmth of human kindness surround him like a shield. But what mattered most wasn't just the help he received. It was the way he was looked at now. Not as a burden, not as invisible, but as a man with a story, a man with dignity. And Manny, when asked later about the moment he didn't boast or take credit, his response was simple. "I was hungry once too. I know what it feels like to be ignored, to be treated as if you don't matter. That's why I will never forget where I came from." Respect is free. Kindness is free. We just need to choose it. Those words, repeated across interviews and quoted in articles, became the heartbeat of the viral story. They reminded people everywhere that compassion isn't about grand gestures. It's about the choice to see and respect the humanity in others. Weeks later, the clip still circulated, gathering millions of views. In schools, teachers played it to inspire students. In churches and community centers, leaders used it to spark conversations about humility and dignity. Even in government circles, the story was cited as proof that leadership is about service, not status. The $1 request had become a global lesson, and yet Manny himself refused to let it be about him. He deflected praise, pointing instead to the man whose courage to ask had sparked the moment. "It started with him," Manny said. "He reminded us all of something important, that asking for help is not weakness, it's human." The homeless man, now slowly rebuilding his life, echoed the sentiment. In a rare interview, he said through tears, "I asked for $1, but what I received was hope. Hope that I am not forgotten. Hope that I can stand again." The story's impact rippled far beyond that street corner. It reminded the world that heroes aren't only made in arenas under bright lights. Sometimes they are revealed in the quiet act of stooping down, of lifting someone who has been cast aside. And so the lesson lived on. True champions don't fight for glory. They fight for dignity, for respect, for humanity. If you believe no one should ever be judged by appearance or circumstance, type respect in the comments and subscribe for more stories that prove kindness is the greatest victory.